Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus, you are tuned into the Loan Officer Podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and an extraordinarily special guest, all the way from South Florida, by way of Maryland, by way of University of Florida. He is a 30-year mortgage professional. He's an instructor at Gold Coast Schools. He is a mortgage loan originator with Halpern and Associates. He has his own website called mortgagecommander.com, and his name is Bill Benson. Bill, welcome to the Loan Officer Podcast.
Thank you, Dustin. It's a privilege to be here with you and to be able to chat with the people and give them some guidance and instruction.
Yeah, so we are on episode number 120 something. And for the past 7 months, the number one request and the most questions that John Coleman and I answer on a daily and weekly basis has everything to do with young professionals, whether they're young in life or young in their career, young professionals looking to enter into the business, and they need to take their NMLS uniform state test. They need to take the safe pre-licensing 20-hour course, and then they need to study and they need to pass the exam. And they come to me, a guy who for the past 13 going on 14 years has worked for a bank-owned independent mortgage banker, which means I've never been required to actually take the 20-hour course, study, and pass the exam. Now, I've had to do my own fair share of continuing education. I sat through a bunch of courses in order to obtain my CMB, but I'm not you. I'm not an instructor with Gold Coast Schools. I don't have my own website that helps people prepare for the NMLS. So I sincerely thank you for taking the time to come on the show because, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is what Bill and I are going to cover. Everything you've wanted to know about preparing and studying for and passing the NMLS exam, that's what Bill's on here today. But before we get started, if you're tuning in for the first time because this particular title caught your attention, please know that we are not that new. We've been around for the past year and a half. You are tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast. We can be found on Spotify. We can be found on Apple iTunes. And you can also subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at the Loan Officer Podcast. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at the Loan Officer Podcast. And you can also connect with me, Dustin Owen, LinkedIn. You can connect with Bill on LinkedIn as well, but I think they find you under William Benson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, very good. And your website is mortgagecommander.com, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the episode. But first and foremost, let's jump right into this. I want to become a mortgage loan originator. Where do I start, Bill?
All right, that's a great question, Dustin. The beginning is actually not necessarily taking the class. First thing you have to do is register with the NMLS and get an NMLS number, which you and I both have. Now then, the class itself is a 20-hour class. Everybody in the country, no matter where you are, doesn't matter if you're in California, Maine, Florida, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, you need to take the 20-hour course. Now, in addition to the 20-hour course, each state has its own specific requirements, as you know from being in mortgage banking. And just as an example, Florida, Georgia, we share a common border. You get up to North Florida, South Georgia, there's not much of a difference.
Not at all.
But Georgia is a title theory state, meaning we use the deed of trust for the security instrument. And the security instrument, of course, as we know, is what hypothecates the property. That's what the borrower signs, pledging to repay the debt, along with the note, which is the promise that I will repay. Florida, we're lien theory. What does that mean? It means we use the mortgage. So two different security instruments, yet there's a river that separates the two states. And depends on whether you're in a title theory state or a lien theory state as to which instrument you're going to use.
Okay, so the first thing I have to do, which I didn't know this, I think I'm going to love this episode as much as the listeners and the viewers are going to love it. So the first thing you do is actually go on the NMLS, which is what, NMLS.gov?
No, it's the NMLS state registry. It's their resource center.
Okay.
So if somebody were to Google, the best way to do this is NMLS Resource Center. It'll be the very first thing that comes up. They go to the web page, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little button that says log into the NMLS. You click that. You say, well, wait, I don't even have an account. Why am I clicking log in? Because that's the way they set it up.
Okay.
Just up front to prepare everybody. This website is one of the most difficult, convoluted websites to find anything on I've ever dealt with. And as I mentioned that, every month, everybody in the class is shaking their head up and down. You have to go in there from time to time, same thing.
Yeah, once a year.
Yep.
Once a year I have to log in and attest that nothing has changed, or if something has changed, then I need to update the system with all of my pertinent information. So the first step is to actually obtain an NMLS number.
Right. Now,
Any cost to that?
No, there's no cost to get a number. In fact, you can call up, you can sign up, you can go online, you can sign up for a class. But you've got to have an NMLS number before you take the class, because that's how the school lets the NMLS know, hey, Dustin, JC, Bill, they took the course and they completed the course. Otherwise, you don't have the education requirement, and without the education requirement, you can't get licensed.
That makes perfect sense. After like 5 years of sitting on the sidelines watching everyone else invest in crypto, I finally today said, you know what? I want to invest in crypto. The first thing I had to do is go to like a website like Coinbase, and I had to obtain a username and create a password. I still don't own any crypto because I haven't figured out how to get my money out of my checking account into that Coinbase account. But it makes sense. In order for me to get started in that type of investing, I have to create an account. In order to even sign up for my 20-hour pre-licensing course, I need to first obtain an NMLS number. I'm guessing the second thing is then sign up for the course.
Sign up for the course.
Okay, and then anything in particular? I mean, courses for the most part have been either in person or online. COVID hit, most have been online. But anything I should know about signing up for the course? Any particular? I mean, obviously we've plugged it, and I'll plug it all over again. I mean, you are an instructor for Gold Coast.
Correct.
But there's other national companies.
There's some local companies.
Okay.
It's to Florida. There's national companies. So the format is instructor-led.
Okay.
Then there's hybrid, which I actually do one of these a month, which is instructor-led with students in the classroom, but we're doing a live stream. And I tag team teach that with the other primary instructor for Gold Coast, because if you have more than 50 people on the live stream, you have to have a moderator on a web-based live stream class. So what Gold Coast has decided is they will take their two most senior instructors. We've both been teaching for over 25 years. I've got over 30 years in the business. He's got close to 30 years in the business. We know our stuff.
Yep.
And so you can do that, or you can do a web-based class where it's self-paced. You've got to complete it, and you get two choices: 5-day format, 14-day format. But that's because that's the way the NMLS sets it up.
So 5 days would be 4 hours a day for 5 days.
Correct.
14 would be, do the math, about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day for 14 days.
Correct.
I think I've seen other places, because I made a pact. I'm actually going to go through this. I don't need it. It'd be great to have. I'm sure I'll learn something, or I'll relearn something. But is it possible to do 2 10-hour days?
Yes. Some
Okay.
of the schools have gotten approved by the Office of Financial Regulation, actually through the NMLS, that they do 2 10-hour days. There's no magic format. 10-hour days, you're going to typically go from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and you get a 10-minute break for every classroom hour. So each classroom hour is 50 minutes. So theoretically, yes.
Out of curiosity, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Bill. Would you recommend 14, 5, or 2?
My recommendation is obviously tainted, if you will. Go to the live class if at all possible, or do the live stream. There's interaction you get with the instructor that you don't get in a webinar. And even on the live stream, you're not getting the same interaction that you get from the instructor and the other students. You get an opportunity to network, because sometimes when people come to class, they have no idea where they're going to work. Oh, no. My cousin said, go get this license because I'm in real estate and I'll send you all my loans. Well, that's great. Now here you are. Well, where do I go to work? I can't tell them, because when I'm teaching the class, I represent Gold Coast. Now, if they reach out to me after class and say, here's where I am, do you have some ideas? I can give some obviously, after 30 plus years, I know thousands of people.
And if you're tuning into a podcast like this one, and eventually once JC finally has our website built, we'll have a whole entire section called a career corner, and we can help place people. Because I've had listeners that have happily gone and worked for Rocket Mortgage. that worked perfectly into what they were trying to accomplish in their career. We've had listeners that went and worked for the local credit union, and then others have joined companies like Waterston, where they were more of a independent mortgage banker who was out there creating their own book of business. And then once the business comes in, then obviously working on the loans, the pre-approvals, the fundings, et cetera. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. If anyone ever asked me, like live, I would tell someone without doing it, pick 5 days, 4 hours a day. I think 10 hours, 2 days in a row, I don't know what you're really going to learn. I don't know how much you're going to retain. For someone like me, it may work, right? I've been in the business for going on 20 years. A lot of the stuff that's going to be covered, I've probably learned and tested out of a couple times already. And my concern with 14 days, hour and a half, 2 hours a day is, I don't know if I can get in the groove. You know, I don't. If I'm doing that, then am I worried about my kids? Am I worried about my other job, my other schooling? Am I really focused?
Well, and here's the challenge. I'm basically going to deliver the equivalent of a junior or 300 or 3,000 level finance or economics class in 3 days with an end of course exam.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to remember, and you know this from all your management training and having trained people, a week after the class, you maybe, if you're lucky, you remember 20 to 25% of what the instructor said. The real number is like 10%. Mm-hmm. So one of the unique things about Gold Coast, I'll give them a plug here, obviously, is we allow students to take the class as many times as they like to review for up to a year at no additional charge to their tuition. I think it's probably the most liberal retake or review policy in the industry. And so if you take it live, now because of the COVID restrictions, we're cut down on the number of students we have live. To do a review, you've got to do the live stream, and those are done Tuesdays through Thursdays. But as things begin to open up again, and I'm actually beginning to get some review students in some of the larger classes based on the facility and the room, that dictates how many students we can have.
So let's walk through it. The course is 20 hours, and that is what's federally mandated. You have to take this 20-hour course, whether you do it live, whether you don't do it live, that's on you. We're recommending doing it live. What's covered? Like, what is covered in those 20 hours?
All right, so you get 3 hours of federal law and regulation.
Boring.
You mean RESPA puts you to sleep? Actually, TILA puts you to sleep, Truth in Lending Act. But 3 hours of federal regulation, 3 hours on ethics and anti-discrimination.
Needed. After living through 2020 to 2006, 7, and 8, those 3 hours, okay.
All right, and I always introduce that topic with, especially, I teach in Florida.
Yep. By the way, if you weren't around, which obviously if you're tuning in to this episode, you make it this far, you might not have been around in the business. There's like back then what they called the sand states. They blamed us for everything. California, Arizona, Nevada, Florida.
Oh.
The sand states.
You mean like the fog the mirror loan?
Yes.
You got a pulse, you get a loan?
Yeah, we did plenty of those loans back in the day. Therefore, teaching something like ethics and anti-discrimination is well needed, especially if you're in one of those states. All right, and then so you do that. You probably have something on mortgage products.
Well, yes, that's included. You get 2 hours of non-traditional mortgage, and here's something really fascinating, just to throw this in. There's only one traditional mortgage product according to the Safe Mortgage Licensing Act.
What is that?
30-year fixed rate loan.
That's the only traditional.
That's the only traditional.
So if 15 years not traditional and 20 years not traditional?
Balloons, reverses, everything else. Nope, arms, everything's non-traditional.
Now, when they say 30-year, though, are they saying whether it's 30-year VA, 30-year FHA, 30-year conventional? That's regardless?
It doesn't specify.
Okay.
So it can be a 30-year fixed rate conventional. It can be a 30-year fixed rate FHA, VA, Department of Agriculture, USDA loan. It can be a jumbo.
So, all right, kids, I think Bill might have let you in on a little secret. You might want to jot that down, and maybe one of the 120 questions that you're asked.
Yes. Okay. So we'll get to that, and then just a moment on the 120 questions. But 12 hours of electives. Now, the way Gold Coast has its class approved through the NMLS is 2 hours of those electives are the Florida-specific material you must cover. So we incorporate that in our 20-hour class. Other schools may not, but that's the way they did the class.
Okay. So in the state of Florida, and you were an expert in the state of Florida, they incorporate their own what's required within the 20 hours that you're also teaching for this safe pre-licensing course?
Correct. There's
Okay.
a separate 2-hour block that we cover Florida-specific material.
Oh, so if I sign up, I'm actually signing up for 22 hours. I'm signing up for the 20 hours required by SAFE and 2 hours for Florida?
It could be that way.
Okay.
We have gotten the class approved where it's all included
Oh,
in one.
you weaved it together.
Yeah.
You know, one ecosystem. I like that.
Well, and there's a lot of overlap
Yep.
between
Yeah,
the two.
redundancy.
Tremendous. All right. Now, the 120 question test. Here's the great news. It's only 120 questions. So you say, well, Bill, what do you mean? That's great news. Prior to April 5th, it was 125.
Oh,
So they got rid of 5 questions. They have pre-test questions that don't count.
Okay.
So now when you go to take your test, 5 of those questions do not count. They're called pre-test questions. They don't tell you which ones those are. All right.
No way.
No, you just
It's
mixed in.
So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do my 20 hours, and I'm gonna study my butt off, and we're gonna talk. By the way, Bill and I are going to talk about how to study. Bill and I are going to talk about tips and tricks, maybe even some outside services that people can lean into. We're going to talk about pass-fail rates. If you're not a first-time tuner-inner, if you're not a first-time listener or watcher, I have notes on this table, which is rare. I normally do this show with no notes. It's usually just up here in my heart and my gut, and we let it flow. But because this episode is so important, and because it's been so highly requested, we also are going to cover listener questions. So I have a half a dozen listener viewer questions that Bill's going to summarize the episode by answering. Yeah. So I throw it out there just because if you're tuning in and we're prepping you and we're dragging you along, please know it's going to get better. Right? We're going to force you to listen to all 45 or 55 minutes that Bill and I are going to lay down because it's important. It's important for your success. It's important for you passing. It's important for you to understand what you're getting yourself into. Sure. So I do want to circle back because we were talking about the 20-hour course. You said 3 hours were on federal laws and regulations. I said, you said another 3 hours on ethics and anti-discrimination laws. I said, yes, that's definitely required. 2 hours, you cover mortgage products that are deemed non-traditional, which wink, wink, nod, nod, not non-traditional very much is anything that's not a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Correct.
According to the NMLS. And then there's 12 hours of electives. Can you just give me an idea? What do you mean 12 hours on electives?
Well, we go over federal privacy regulations.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
We cover high price and high cost loans.
You guys need that. That's true story. Okay, you need that.
Loan officer compensation,
you need that.
Steering and safe harbor.
You need that.
Let's see, what else is important in there? Anti-money laundering, Bank
Yeah.
Secrecy Act.
Okay,
Suspicious activity
Yep.
reports, things
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
Overview of the mortgage business. How did we get where we are today?
Do you cover like what does a processor do? What does a loan officer do? What does an underwriter do? What does a closer do?
Yeah, in the first day, we'll cover that, the 4 basic functions in mortgage lending. Originating, processing, underwriting, and servicing.
Okay.
We cover that and come back to it at different times and make sure that everybody understands the roles because that's part of the test. So the test, the 120 questions.
Yes.
The 115 that they're going to grade. Here's the magic number, 87.
87.
If you get 87 correct, you get a 75.4%, you passed.
Think Gronk. Okay, for my football fans, he wears number 87. Think
you go.
Gronk. You need to Gronk this test.
Well, and I can tie that in. A very good friend of mine who I've known for years now, I mentored years ago, is a fellow named Brian Holloway. He played for the Patriots in the 80s. He was their first-round draft pick in 1981.
Okay.
Captain on their Super Bowl team. He and Gronk are buddies. He's a Patriot alumni. And one of the things I was telling him I was going to be on the podcast, he said, well, oh, man, we're going to slice that podcast up. We're going to make NFTs. I'm going, okay, Brian, I'm running with you on this.
This is awesome.
Trying to wrap my head
Yes,
around
Brian,
NFTs.
please make NFTs.
Oh, we will
Okay.
bring that in.
Okay.
Anyhow.
Let's bring Gronk in, too, while we're at it.
Well,
I mean, he's right down the road.
him I don't know, but I have a little special surprise for you, but it's at the very end.
Okay.
All right, now, Brian had to train hard to get where he was, all right? With the people that make it to the NFL, you mentioned on a previous episode that your dream is for your son to be a long snapper for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes. Yeah, we put it out there in the universe.
All right, that's the little thing that's the carrot
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you till the very end. All right, now then, Brian got where he was because he was dedicated, He worked hard. And it's like one of your episodes is leads, right?
It's your job.
Your job is to get leads. Well, how do I get a lead? What's a lead? Here's the best description I ever heard of that. You probably really like this. A lead is nothing more than an opportunity to have a conversation. And if you start to think of it from that perspective, everybody loves to talk.
JC, put that on TikTok. Put that on TikTok. What is it? A lead is nothing more than an opportunity to have a conversation.
That's correct.
I once told someone my business plan going into 2019, I think, was to have more meaningful conversations on a daily basis than I had in 2018. Like that was written on the top of my yellow legal pad of paper that sits on top of my desk, my little to-do list. Or sometimes I call it the DO list, right? DO, do. Little play on words I use to humor myself at work. But no, I love that, Bill. That is spot on. So how do we get on? We got on Brian. We got 120 questions. Well, 5 of those are throwaways, but you don't know which one the throwaway is. Okay.
And it gets to the dedication. You mentioned this earlier. You sign up for the class, you get the NMLS number, you take the class, you study your rear end off, which you have to, especially if you're coming into this outside the industry. You have no experience in real estate, no experience in this at all. You are behind a millstone. And if you think of I can't think of the fellow's name, the Greek myth where he pushes the stone up the hill and just before he gets to the top,
JC's the smart one out of this bunch.
Who's that
he's
guy?
off camera.
The guy that pushes the rock upstairs.
Yeah.
As soon as he gets to the top, it rolls.
Is Atlas?
No,
Was
Not
it
Atlas.
not
It
Atlas?
begins-
My dad tells me all the time.
and it's not the guy that flies close to the sun and the wax
it's
wings
Icarus.
melt. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a hard row to hoe.
That was
to
Icarus,
use.
by the way.
Icarus was the flying.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's a hard row to hoe, to use a farming term. You've got to commit yourself. And people say, well, how much do I have to study? Because some people think, hey, I'm going to go to the class, I'm going to listen to the instructor, and, that's how I did my real estate, and I passed the first time. This is not the real estate exam.
Awesome. That's
The
good to
only-
know.
The only 2 exams that I can tell you, based on experience, are tougher than this are either the Series 6 or Series 7 stockbroker exam
Okay.
or the 220 Florida property and casualty exam. All right, if you've passed those tests, then you know what it takes to get through this test. Minimum 40 to 60 hours of dedicated, focused time. Phone turned off, turned upside down, not paying attention to email, focused.
Well, you're answering one of our later questions. We're going to jump right into this a little bit. Okay. So 48 to 60 hours after I've completed my coursework, you're recommending that is put into studying,
Correct.
preparing, flashcards, maybe getting a coach, at which point maybe we can talk about how someone would get a coach once we've addressed some of these upfront questions. Tutoring is one of them. How to pass the exam is one of them. What is the average pass rate?
Average pass rate is 58% first time.
So just know going into it, it's almost a coin toss whether or not you are going to pass on your first time.
Basically, 4 out of 10 people don't, and then the pass rate second time is 44%, so it's come down.
Well, so if I don't pass the first time, I have a worse odds of passing the second time?
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So basically, of everyone who signs up, raises their hand and say, I want to do this, we're only picking up roughly about 70%?
Roughly.
Unless they take it a third time.
Well, then
which
it
can
drops to 29%.
Can you take it a third time? How many times can you take your NMLS
You get 3 attempts.
per year or in lifetime?
No, initially.
Initially.
So you pass the class, you register for the test, you study. If you're unfortunate enough that you don't pass, you have to wait 30 days.
Okay.
They want you to study, is
Yep.
really what they're telling you.
And you're recommending obviously study because you're saying 48 to 60 hours.
Minimum.
So although theoretically I could finish my course and take my exam the next day, your recommendation, especially if you're brand new to the business, is that's a bit foolish.
It is very bullish.
Yep.
Yes. Now, if you are unsuccessful on your 3rd attempt, and each attempt you have to wait 30 days, you wait 6 months. But it's not the end of the world. I had a student back in 2014, I ended up doing some tutoring with him, failed the exam 5 times. On his 6th attempt, he passed. And for the last 7 years, he's been originating loans in South Florida successfully because he had the fire in the belly to succeed.
Yep.
And that's what it takes. The dedicated, that getting back to Brian, professional athlete,
Yep.
all pro, played for the Raiders and the Patriots. It takes dedication. And if you really want this, and the bowels, down in the fire in the belly, then make it happen.
So let me ask you, because I don't think we finished that story. I got sidetracked. I got all excited about Gronk. Then you mentioned my son and long snapping for the Jaguars, and there's a surprise. Was Brian that guy that needed
No.
Okay.
Brian is off on a whole different plane.
Okay.
He ended up being a all-Pac-8 tackle at Stanford,
Okay.
and he got an economics degree there.
Okay.
I graduated from the University of Maryland. All right. Brian graduated from Stanford.
Okay.
But we're like on this level. But some things, I'm up here. Other things, I just shut up and I listen to him.
Okay. Brian's your buddy.
Yeah.
Brian's your buddy who happened to know Gronk, who knew you were coming on the podcast and was like, hey, we should do something special. We should chop up some of those bits and pieces. Oh, love it. Love it. All right. Well, what's up, Brian? Thanks for the love and the support. Definitely appreciate it. Okay. So tutoring then. I mean, you're talking about I need to study for 48 to 60 hours. That's your recommendation. Do I put together a study group? Do I find
real quick
flashcards?
on that.
Okay.
Number one, go back and review the notes and review the topics covered in your class. You've got a book. It should be highlighted. I have people bracket stuff on the ends because the way I teach the class is I've taken the NMLS exam outline. It only has 541 topics and subtopics they can test you on. Now, the good news is there's some duplication. So there's really only 471 unique topics and subtopics you have to be familiar with.
So I have to know 471, and of those 471, 125.
120.
120
on the test.
120 are going to be the test.
And here's the thing. Don't get stressed out that you only got a 77. I had a student the other day text me, I passed. I said, great, what score? Because I always ask when they reach out, what score did you get and how many math questions? And here's the magic math question, 2 to 4, max. So everybody, look at me right here, right here. You're watching me. Math is easy. And if you believe that, it is. And by the way, math is easy. So again,
and even still, it's only going to be 4 to 6 questions.
Maybe 4. Usually 2.
You're allowed to miss like 28. So even if you missed every math question, you still have another 20 you can go and miss.
Well, those are the last 2 I tell them to do. I say, well, look, when you're going through the test, go through. When you get to the math questions, pick C, mark to review, and just move on. Don't even stop. After you go through, you're going to find that some of the questions you marked for review, you're going to click the answer because in every standardized exam, there's always answers and questions further on that reference a question you maybe thought you didn't know in the beginning. Go back, review, make sure you got your answers. The last thing you do is the math. And if you end up with 30 seconds left and 2 math questions, C.
Yeah, when in doubt, go C.
It's
I learned that in like middle school.
It's the most it's the answer they use most often because the person that writes the question, having written over 1,000 test questions from the practice exams, I can guarantee you, I want you reading at least 3 of my answers. Now, some of the time the answer is A or B.
Yes.
But C, then B, then D. A is the least frequently one used.
Whoa, say that again.
All right.
Okay.
Most frequently question, the answer is C.
Okay.
But if you mark C for all 120, you're only going to get about 40 correct. So
yeah, but statistically speaking,
Yeah.
you have studies that say it goes C, B, then D, almost never A.
Right.
I love that. By the way, if you're my children listening, tune out now. This is a boring episode, not one you need to be tuned into, because especially what I'm getting ready to say, ladies and gentlemen who are tuning in and trying to pass this, Bill just said it. I don't know if you heard it. C's get degrees. So if you have a 77% and they only need a 75 for you to pass, high freaking 5, move on. Because I'm guessing, Bill, there's a lot they don't teach with this.
We teach you what you need to know to get a license. Now, I do go over some things in class. You talked about lead generation and how do you find a lead, and I tell some stories about how I found, different opportunities. And basically, if you will talk to a tree, which my wife, she'll introduce me as this is the guy that'll talk to a tree if it'll listen. All right? Just talk.
Yeah.
You were talking about that earlier. I think the guy's name was Jim. He had all these questions, in class, and you're going, but I know he's going to be successful.
Oh, Jimmy, yes.
Jimmy, because he talked to 18 people. He made 18 calls, and 12 realtors want to talk to him.
Yeah.
It's what's the old thing? Put on the uniform, show up, and be present. Work hard, and you will succeed.
Pick up your phone, right? And then imagine if you're wearing your uniform, you're present, and when the phone rings, you pick it up and you're able to say, hi,
Right.
hello, how are you? No, 100%. And I'm glad you teach that. Like, what I love about getting to know you as an instructor is you're one of what I call one of my favorite professors. When I went to the University of Central Florida, by the way, check out this brand new helmet I got this weekend from UCF's yard sale. So what they do at the university to raise money is they take all their old equipment and they allow like boosters and donors and students and faculty and season ticket holders to come on a Saturday and buy all their used gear.
Oh, how cool
So
is
I'm
that?
curious if the IRS will let me write this off because we are using it as a prop for TLOP. If maybe one day I could expense this beautiful helmet. If I can't, it's okay as a donation to my university. And it looks pretty awesome on this.
A suggestion to you. Now,
Yes.
I'm not an accountant and I don't play one on TV, and I'm not staying at the Holiday Inn Express tonight. Marketing. Just general.
Marketing. Oh, okay,
Do
yeah.
not specifically
The-
by line item break down like I put my easy button on the table. You've got an easy button. Now you got a helmet. Marketing.
Yeah. You are the first guest to ever bring your own prop, which props to you for bringing your own prop is pretty awesome. But no, what I was getting at is my favorite professors when I was at UCF were adjunct professors, right? They might have had their PhDs in something and it could have been education, but they also practiced what they preached. I think if I'm looking for an instructor, I'm looking for a Bill because you still originate loans for a living. You make money as a loan officer, correct?
That's correct.
Yep. You do at a minimum a couple loans a month, maybe not at the peak of your career because you have the website, you have your teaching gig, you may be at a different point in life. But I love the fact that you teach what I need to know to pass the exam, but also you're like willing to raise your hand and say, this is just the beginning. Like you need to know all these other things. You guys and girls should look for that. You should look for an instructor that also works in the field, who also has their hands dirty, they're down in the trenches, because you'll be able to gain so much for them, even if it's just a little sidebar comment or a quick rabbit hole that they jump down.
Right.
I think that's awesome. All right, did we talk about tutoring and how to pass the exam?
Yeah. So with tutoring, what I've had to do, because my schedule has increased, I do consulting and quality control with a mortgage company in South Florida now that I'm more involved with that. Before I will tutor anybody, they have to, at a minimum, get a hold of my study materials. And I prefer that they do the videos. I have two levels, with videos, without. 12 hours of video where I go through the NMLS exam outline and explain everything to you.
So this is a service that you provide.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming we would find out about this by going to mortgagecommander.com.
Well, kind of, sort of.
Okay.
So mortgagecommander.com is a website I set up 6 years ago. And the whole reason I set it up, I got tired of students coming up on the break and going, Bill, do you have a website that I can get practice questions on? No, I don't. You should.
Yeah.
And just after listening to that like too many times, I wrote 240 questions, put up a simple website, and people started using it and passing. But then over the years,
Man, I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are 14 months into this little fun passion project, and yeah, now JC's out trying to get a website started because the fans want to know, like, hey, where can I go to see more of this?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know, LinkedIn, and that's not sufficient. So you
I
had your
started with
fans,
that,
your
yes.
fans wanted that, okay?
They wanted that. And then a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, my mother had to have back surgery. She lives with us. She's 91. Well, a month before that, I had joined a loan officer coaching group, paid some serious,
Good for you.
dinero to do it.
Yep.
And I wanted to really focus on non-qualified mortgages and on self-employed borrowers. All right. Then my mom, one morning, Bill, help, I can't get out of bed. She couldn't walk. So, week in the hospital, an operation on her back later. She's got a walker now. She doesn't drive anymore. I was the caretaker who was at home. So I looked at this and I said, okay, how am I going to make lemonade out of these lemons?
Because you were ready to go out and vamp up your origination business, right? That was the purpose of you paying a bunch of money to be coached, which, by the way, at some point in your career, everyone tuning in, highly recommended that you find a coach. And there's various levels of coaching. So there is coaching for when you're getting started, although I would tell you should go work for a mortgage branch that your manager would be a really good mentor and coach for you in the early years. Even if you get to a point after a year or 2 or 3 that you have maybe peaked and you now need to go be coached by someone different.
Yeah.
At that point, maybe you look outside. So you looked outside. You found coaching because you were going to go all in. Mom gets sick. Your mom's primary caretaker. So that's life throwing you lemons.
So now I'm at home.
Okay.
And I say, you know what? I want to expand the website. So I download the NMLS exam outline. I put together my 140.
Can anyone download that? Or
Yeah, it's
okay.
on the NMLS website.
Okay.
And I'll provide it to people. We could probably even put it up on your website if you want, once JC gets it done.
Once JC gets that website done, come on, JC, where you at? Once he gets that website done, which, by the way, will be TLOP online, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. But if until then, if someone wanted to go, what's the website again?
They can find, well, my website's mortgagecommander.com.
Just go there. That's all we need.
But I don't have it up there yet. It's still the basic bare bones website I
Okay.
put up 6 years ago. I was actually talking to my web guy on the way in this afternoon, and he's revamping it, and I'm not going to, he said, Bill, whatever you do not give a timeline, because in technology, everything kind of looks like it's ready to go, and then
Oh, too
something
bad.
happens.
Too bad. I've already thrown June out there, and
So-
every time I talk to JC, I changed it. And true story, he went to meet with our web developer. By the way, he is a guest on the podcast, Dennis Miller. And homeboy got sick from his second COVID shot. So he had to cancel on JC.
Yeah.
So I hope he didn't put us back a week, Bill. I hope JC and Dennis are going to be able to get TLOP back online.
Hopefully it's
Okay.
not only a week.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're revamping the website, and something else I'm doing following on that, and I guess this idea from my friend Brian Holloway.
Okay.
Mortgage Champions XL. And the XL is not Excel, the word, it's XL. All right. So I'm also got that domain parked. And after we get Mortgage Commander revamped by the end of the year, I'm going to have a coaching and training website for new LOs. It may not be as comprehensive as Zenix, but it'll be, out there, it'll be available. And if you like the way I do things, come and partake.
I would be very interested in talking to you more about that offline.
Sure.
and watching and maybe even supporting it as it goes. So I'm guessing, and I cut you off, and I apologize. I do that from time to time. So you all know that if you tune into enough episodes. But you leaned hard into tutoring and coaching younger professionals because you couldn't go out and originate mortgages at the level that you were anticipating, but you found a way to stay home and bring revenue in the door by leaning into your website and offering tutoring, and I guess, would it be coaching? Would you call it coaching? Like you coach people how to
I actually
pass?
have one coaching client right now.
Okay.
She's a loan originator up in Ocala.
Okay.
Very hard worker, very determined to succeed. In fact, on my way back from Gainesville, I was up there seeing my sons yesterday. I stopped in Ocala this afternoon, and we met and had coffee. And she had like 5 loans she had to go over with me. I'm like, how do we qualify this borrower? Here's this tax return. Here's this, here's that. And so I was hesitant to bring her on, but she bugged me so much. Bill. Kind of like in this book of Matthew in the Bible, there's a widow that goes to the judge every day seeking justice. And finally, he relents and gives her justice. All right? Finally, I relented, and I
So
began to
you are
coach.
coaching a loan officer, but you're tutoring future leaders on how to pass the NMLS.
In fact, tonight, when we get done, I'm actually going to go to dinner with my sister. She lives here in Maitland. After that, I have a 7:30 to 8:30 1-hour tutoring session via Zoom from my hotel. And I'm going to tutor the same fellow 1 hour tonight, 1 hour tomorrow night. I don't do as much tutoring as I used to because my schedule's just gotten a little crazy. If you want me to tutor you, you have to get the materials. And I really want you to get the videos.
And where do you go to get the materials, and where do you go to
Well,
get the videos?
You email me and I send you the information because I don't have the website revamped yet where you
Okay.
can just go online. But
but these are your videos and your material.
my videos, my 149-page study guide that
Okay.
I wrote, my 1,000 questions, my 300 electronic flashcards, and all that is only $149. If I tutor you, it's $75 an hour on Zoom, $125 live because I have to travel. And so for less than it costs you to pay me to tutor you for 2 hours, you get 12 hours of videos. It's 24/7. They're on Vimeo. You can get them anytime. And so before I'll tutor, typically you have to go through that. Every once in a while I will tutor someone that only did the package without the videos, which is $99, because they're tight on their timeline. And I will do that. But like with Travis, we did some crazy tutoring. There was one time that he was just the day before his test. He needed one last little oomph in session. I'm driving up the turnpike. I'm outside of Stuart, Florida, and I'm on a call with him. I'm doing FaceTime from the car doing tutoring.
Yeah, shout out to Travis Henke. So Travis Henke is a rookie loan officer here at Waterstone Mortgage, and he introduced Bill and I, right? I mean,
Yes.
Travis swears by you. Like, you hung the moon when it comes to Travus. And by the way, we swear by Travus. Travus and Jimmy, who we talk about a lot, are two rookie loan officers that I don't see any reason why next year they're not doing 18 to 24 million a piece. 80% of that's going to be purchase business referred in by realtors and builders. I mean, the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
And you helped Travis get to that point, which I think is amazing. You're talking a little bit about cost, which, by the way, you also mentioned your email address. So your email address is webmortgage@gmail.com. By the way, if you're newer in the business, you might not know this. There's a T in mortgage. Okay. There's a running joke that we say about people in the industry. We're like, that person's so new, they don't even know there's a T in mortgage. Okay. WEB for William E. Benson, mortgage, MORTGAGE @gmail.com. So they can email you, they can visit your website.
Correct.
But and there's something else I want to come back to on your website and on that side business. But before we do, I had some notes written down here just about cost in general.
Okay.
What does it typically cost to get my, we know there's no cost to actually get an NMLS number.
Right.
That's just get your login, your username, cool. But if I want to take, I need to take the 20-hour course, what's that cost typically?
The course is going to be on the low end, like $240-ish.
Okay.
And then
$240.
$240 to $299, depending
Okay.
on who you sign up with.
Yep.
Then the exam is $110.
And is that everywhere I go?
That's everywhere you
Okay.
go. Well, there's only one place you can go. Prometric is the vendor. And
And that's the same exam whether I'm in Hawaii, Maine, or anywhere in between.
you just don't know which 120 questions you're going to
Yep.
get.
Yep.
And then it's in Florida, the license is roughly $300. And in class, people will say, well, and I'll go, look, in the book here, it tells you it's $300.25, but it might be a little less, it may be a little more. And you know what? You don't care, because you're going to let them whack your credit card for whatever it is, because you're ready to get the license.
How about on the expensive end? Like, what's the most expensive I should be looking to pay for my 20-hour course?
$299, maybe $369-ish. It's very competitive.
Okay, so like if someone's being quoted $600 or $700, that should make me like take a step back, deep breath, and reassess my situation.
That better include questions, videos, flashcards, study guide, all that stuff.
Okay, so I know I like this. So it's going to cost me roughly $300 for my 20-hour course, roughly $300 to actually take the test.
Well, to get the license, another 110, so you're up to 710-ish.
Okay.
And then if you get some supplemental materials, another 100 to 200-ish. So all in, really serious, 800.
Okay.
And that's if you pass the first time, hopefully.
Yep. But like, I mean, your average student needs how many hours with you one-on-one?
With me one-on-one, typically 2 to 4 maybe.
Okay, so let's say
If
4.
that.
There's an extra $300. All right. And your materials another
150-ish, 99 to 149.
so for $1,200.
Yeah.
For $1,200, I can start a career, not a job. It's not a job. This is a career in the mortgage banking industry. Even if you start off thinking you want to be a loan officer, you might not be. You may end up being a badass loan partner or a mortgage processor, and then later a underwriter. Like last year, guys and girls, the average mortgage processor probably made between $65,000 and $95,000.
Correct.
Right? The average mortgage underwriter made between $80,000 and $180,000. Like, so you may think you want to be a loan officer. And you may get into it and you fall in love with mortgage, or you fall in love with the company, but you might not fall in love with the scope of being an MLO. That's okay. But you're telling me for $1,200, I can mac out. Like I can go all inclusive, right? Like an all inclusive resort, sandal style down in Jamaica, but I'm gonna do this for a career change.
Correct.
Or to launch a career. Yeah. In my world, do you know what the average commission is, one loan?
Well, okay. I know what it is in South Florida.
I mean, I'll
Because
just
our loan amounts are higher.
yeah, but let's just say it's $2,500,
That's a
right? It could be $3,500, but let's just say it's $2,500 for half of one commission.
right.
For half of one commission, you could first obtain your NMLS, then sign up for the course. That's going to cost you $300, and then you're gonna 100 and what was 100 and some for the
110 for the test. 300 for the license.
300
So, no, you go all Mac Daddy.
300 for some extra study guides, some extra study help. And from what I hear, that's what you're recommending. You're not recommending someone cram the course in 20 hours and the next day go take your test. You're saying take your course over a week, then spend another 2 to 4 weeks studying, potentially highly consider reaching out to a service like yours or many others that probably provide it to obtain some study guides, and maybe even drop an extra. Look, you're already spending $900. Why not spend an extra $150? I mean, if you're going to do something, do it well.
Correct.
And spend the extra $150 to buy some of Bill's time and some of Bill's expertise to make sure that you're in that 58 percentile.
Correct.
That's what you're trying to do. Because if you're not in the 58 percentile and you do fail, you're in the 42 percentile, now you have to wait how long again, Bill?
30 days.
30 days, which means that's 30 days of continuing to study. It's not like you can just, oh shit, let me go home and cram really quickly. No, you have 30 days of being dormant and having to study, at which point your likelihood of passing is that much lower.
Correct.
Right? So, for anyone tuning in, that's what I'm getting from this. Okay, now, I like this, right? Because I do want to plug WEB Mortgage at
and by the
gmail.com.
way,
Yes.
How cool and prescient was that? That my parents, years ago, before the internet ever existed, gave me the initials WEB.
Right?
I'm actually junior. My dad was William E. Benson Sr.
Yeah, Web Mortgage. Yeah.
So people say, how did you get that email? Oh,
real-
I applied for it. I went on Gmail and I typed it in and
It was
I
voila.
got it.
Yeah,
That's
voila.
like my other ego is mortgagecommander@gmail.com.
Yep.
Well, that's based on my naval officer background. Although I made it to lieutenant because I decided at the 7-year mark it was make a career or go back into becoming a civilian. And I am very happy I became a civilian.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, mortgage commander, there has to be some kind of a tie-in. So you graduated with your 4-year degree, then you went to OCS?
Correct.
Okay, spent 7 years serving our country in the Navy?
Yes.
Very cool. What'd you do?
I was a surface warfare officer on 2 different ships out of San Diego.
Oh, my San Diego, bet it sucked to have to live there, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really rough.
Or were you out to sea ever?
Well, I joke about that because 7 years I was on active duty, 4.5 of it I was floating around.
Okay.
And then for like 1.5 years of it, I was in an overhaul period in Long Beach. But then sadly, I had to live in Redondo Beach, California.
Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that. No, because your website, like on top of being the instructor for Gold Coast and a mortgage loan origination for Halpern, you have your website, and that's where the people listening are probably going to find you, right? They're going to find you because they're going to reach out to you. They want your study material. They possibly need to, and I'm suggesting this, by the way, they need to highly consider dropping an extra $150 or $300 to get some form of a private tutor. It's a serious business. It's your career. Like, treat it that way. But here's what I love. Hope you don't mind. I'm going to share this. Okay. There are companies out there like, 10% of our proceeds, right, go towards XYZ, or a portion of our proceeds. Well, what does a portion mean? Oh, it could be 1 penny of every dollar that we net profit. But what Bill is doing with mortgagecommander.com, 10% of his gross revenue, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Before you get paid, before you pay your web developer, before you pay your taxes, that money comes in, you have 10% of your gross proceeds, the big number, going towards 2 charities that are near and dear to your heart.
Well, it's actually more like 5%, but yes.
Okay.
Two charities.
Okay.
And for those of you on the podcast that are watching, I just apologize in advance. Not that I have to, but I typically get emotional when I talk about these two subjects. So the first nonprofit that my wife and I support is a breast cancer support organization called Your Bosom Buddies. They're based out of South Florida. And the reason we support them is 10 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And the real irony of this is at that time, she's a registered nurse. She was a research oncology nurse, and her specialty was breast cancer.
Wow.
All right. So this group provided counseling and all sorts of other support. And as a result of their involvement in our lives, I decided when I started the website 6 years ago that I was going to give some back of what we received. So we got the website going, and little by little it's built up, and my wife would go to the meetings. And about every 3 months I'd send her with a check, and she'd go to the lady that runs it and said, "Here, Bill wants you to have this." And she'd go, "What's this?" I said, "Well, my husband has a website that he does training on, and he wants to give back to our group because of the impact it had in our lives." Wow. Tell him thank you. 3 months later, another check. Then it got to the point where every other month I'd send a check. And then I'd go to the Christmas party with them, and they'd all be, "Oh, thank you so much. This is so nice." So then, not this year, but a year and a half ago, because last year they had to cancel the gala because of the COVID, my wife gets a phone call. And the woman who runs the organization, Linda, she says, "We're going to give Bill a plaque because of all the fundraising
How cool is that?
that he's done." She says, "How does he want the plaque to read?" And I just said, "Bill Benson, mortgage commander." She said, "That's all he wants?" "Yeah." So next time I figure we're going to get together again.
Oh, yeah.
And at my next visit to you, I will bring you my pink plaque that I got from the Bosom Buddies.
Can we put it right here?
We can put it right there.
Beautiful. I would love to do
All
that.
right. So, and then the backside of this is I relate this story in class as I present the materials. My wife became a peer counselor for this group. And 3 of the students I've had since I started doing this came up to me on the break after I did this presentation. And they said, "I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer. Can I have your wife's contact information?"
Wow.
If I never made a penny from this website, the opportunity to hook them up with my wife,
Priceless, right?
priceless.
Yeah. Absolutely priceless.
Then the second group is
But real quick, because I want to come back to that. So it is Your Bosom Buddies.
Your Bosom Buddies.
They have a website?
Yeah, kinda. It's Your Bosom Buddies 2. It's a
Two-
volunteer sort of
TOO?
thing. No,
The number 2?
it's hard to say.
Well, I'm
But
curious.
no, if people wanted to donate, there are ways to do it. The main group is called Your Bosom Buddies. They're out of Boca, Palm Beach area.
Okay.
And if you want to send a donation and then you earmark it for the Miami group, they will get it.
Okay. And I say that because this episode hasn't even aired yet, but we interviewed one of my favorite loan officers ever, a guy by the name of Kevin Murphy. Kevin did like almost 200 units last year for like 48 million. And he's one of my favorite people because 1, I've known him since 6th grade, but B, I hired him at $12 an hour to be my assistant 9 years ago. And I've watched him grow and I've watched him develop into this kick-ass mortgage professional. And I said to him, he's a huge Buffalo Bills fan. And if you follow football, if you know anything about professional football, Bills Mafia, that fan base is one of the best fan bases ever. In fact, when you're on YouTube checking out the Loan Officer Podcast, go ahead and in the search bar put in Bills Mafia, and they do really cool things. Like when something happened a couple years ago and one team beat another team, and by beating that other team, it propelled the Bills into the playoffs. Bills Mafia found out who the quarterback's charity was of the winning team and sent like $30,000 or $100, something ridiculous amount of money, this fan base, to a quarterback for the team that they don't support, right? And they're known to do this every single year. So I said to Kevin, and JC's a big proponent, if we put it out there in the universe, it may happen. How cool would it be as this show continues to grow and people continue to like it and share it and subscribe and tell their friends and their family, and JC finally gets that freaking website built so we can really promote all the good stuff that we're doing? How cool would it be if the T-Loppers, right? If the T-Loppers did something like, hey, what if everyone who tuned into this episode, which is going to be thousands, right? What if you just gave $5? What if 2,000 people each gave $5? We would raise, I mean, I'm not a math major here,
amazing.
Bill, but I think it's $10,000. So I want to find out, how do we, as the Loan Officer Podcast and the fan base, how do we each give $5 because we tuned into this episode that didn't have any commercials, that didn't really pimp out or promote that many companies besides the ones that Bill works for? How do we pimp out your bosom buddies, and how do we raise 10 grand for them?
I think I want to talk to the lady that runs it, Linda Burgess.
Okay.
And I want to potentially set up a GoFundMe.
Okay.
Because that would probably be the best way to do it. So not that I don't want the love coming back, but
If you set up a GoFundMe, we'll find a way to get it posted on YouTube, to get it posted on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. People can obviously reach out to you directly,
Correct.
right? You can have your GoFundMe, maybe put it up on yours. Just how cool would that be?
That would be way
All right.
cool.
All right. So how about the second one?
The second group is a veterans group.
Okay.
Being a former naval officer. One of my students and her husband started a charitable organization called Host a Hero. And their website is, I should have looked this up, it's probably hostahero.org. But they took their vacation home. And one day they were having a conversation with some friends, and they've all got second homes down in Key Largo, Tavernier, in Isla Mirada, in the Florida Keys. And they said, we don't use our homes that all the time. Why don't we set something up, and we'll go and we'll find out what it'll take to send members of the Special Forces and their families on a 1-week vacation, everything paid for, airfare, transportation, food, excursion, whatever. You can do it up to $10,000 and it doesn't violate any federal law. And so when I met her in class, she mentioned this to me. And then when I was tutoring her, she made all these flashcards, 300 of them. That's why I have 300 e-flashcards.
Oh, good
so
for you.
So when we got done tutoring, I said, would you be willing to let me have your flashcards? I want to include them in my study package, and then I will donate a portion of the proceeds back to Host a Hero for your input. She says, oh, I'll give them to you. You don't have to. I says, no, you don't understand. I want to. Because the two groups that are probably most important to me in my life, breast cancer support and veterans. And this way, I get to give back to both.
No, I love Special Forces because I don't know if people tuning in really know what it's like to be a married to a Special Forces person, to be the child of a Special Forces person. You're talking about someone who signs up to go to the most dangerous, remote places that you most likely can't tell your spouse where you're going. You can't really have contact, and they have a general idea of when you're going to be home, but not really.
Maybe.
They may know when you're going to get home, and you have no communication. Like, my friends who have been deployed in Iraq, in Afghanistan, love them dearly. They served our country. How amazing. They had satellite phones. They had email. For the most part, they were able to communicate. It wasn't daily, right? It was still a sacrifice. It was still a high stress. But they weren't the same as the Special Forces that I'm aware of, that when they disappear, it could be a jungle in South America doing something that we're not supposed to know what they do, and we don't know how long they're going to be gone for. So that's a massive sacrifice that their children and their spouses are making.
Yeah.
Look, we all make sacrifice. But that's like going above and beyond. So I love the fact that it's so specialized that it's like, no, we want, and they really want active duty Special Forces. That's, and I'm sure there's a requirement. I'm sure you have to petition or submit your paperwork and get selected somehow, right?
Somehow.
But no, and that's Host a Hero.
Host a Hero.
So Host a Hero, your bosom buddies. All right, you ready to do some questions?
Yes.
All right,
let's
let's jump in right here. I got my questions. So I'm gonna ask them as if they're asking you.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, if I plan to originate in multiple states, should I study for and pass all of those state exams first, or just do my home state and worry about the other states once I'm hired on somewhere?
Great question. Start with the home state, wherever that is, because it's the same 120 question test anywhere in the country. You'll do different, 2 hour, 3 hour, 5 hour. Utah, all right. Watch out in Utah because they have a 15-hour separate Utah curriculum.
Ooh, so Utah is actually one of the states that we get a lot of comments and questions. So I'm glad you threw it out there. So if you're trying to license in Utah, say that again?
20-hour pre-licensing, 15-hour Utah-specific webinar course.
Okay. But your advice is start with your home state.
Start with your
home state. And I would tell you that just from a marketing standpoint. Like, start with your home state, because if you're going to buy into what I coach and teach, you're now going to try to become a local expert, and you're going to market yourself in your community. Most of your business should be coming from your local community with the ability to help your friends that are outside. Now, obviously, if you're living in Maryland, where you're from the D.C. area, if you're in the D.C. area, well, you kind of need Maryland, Virginia, possibly Delaware, because people are buying second homes in Rehoboth Beach. But if you're in Central Florida like we are, I mean, you're only lending for the most part in Florida. But maybe if you're in the Panhandle, like you said, you once lived in Fort Walton Beach. Mm-hmm. Well, we call that Lower Alabama, right? So you have, yeah. So you have Fort Walton. You're also going to need Georgia. You're also going to need Alabama, and possibly even Mississippi and Louisiana. But okay, I like that. But how about this one?
Well, because here's the back side of that. Once you get approved in Florida, let's say Florida is your home state, or wherever your home state is, all you have to do to get the license in the next state is do their state-specific requirement. Now, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri do not require any state-specific.
Get out of town.
But they do require a sponsorship from a company. So, yes, you can get licensed in Florida, and then immediately after you get licensed, you can apply in those other 3 states. But you have to have somebody lined up to work for.
Correct.
Right?
So basically, get my home state, get hired on, and then pluck off the states that only require me to have a sponsorship, and right, because now I'm up to maybe 4 or 5 states, and then if a state needs me to take additional, whether it's a 2-hour course or a 15-hour course, at which point I will then take the course, take the exam, pass it.
There's no other exam. Well, there's an exam at the end of the webinar.
Okay.
Typically 15, 20, 25 questions, but once you've got the license in your home state, you got the license. You've got the 20-hour class done.
So should I be less freaked out to take my state portion then?
Yes.
Like I'm in Utah, or what are some other states that come to mind that are going to be a little bit more restrictive?
California is like 4 hours. North Carolina is 3 or 4. New York is 3.
Which state is the easiest?
Florida, by my reckoning, because as I look through all this, we don't require sponsorship.
Okay.
You take the class, you take the webinar, you pass the test, you apply for the license, you get the license. It's inactive till you find a company to go to work for, and then you affiliate with the company. Once you've got the license, so let's say you get licensed in Florida, and you want to get licensed in Georgia. All you have to do is do the Georgia webinar, pass their quiz at the end, and submit your application. And as long as your criminal background check and your credit report are 6 months old or less, you typically don't even have to redo those.
Oh, wow.
Now, the one caveat on multiple states, continuing education.
Ooh, we haven't talked about that yet.
8 hours every year. Now then, 12 of the states do not have any state-specific CE, so you can do a course if you're in any of those states, and it counts for all those
then I have
states.
reciprocity
on that education.
Do you know those 12 states
Not
on the top of your head?
of my head, no.
Well, what are some of them that you can recall?
I don't even recall any of them.
Yeah. No, you threw the caveat. Look, like, I know Florida inside and out. I know enough about the other 49 states to be dangerous. If someone wanted to do that research, is there a certain website you would tell them to go to?
NMLS Resource Center.
Okay, NMLS Resource Center. So just Google NMLS Resource Center.
Same website they got their NMLS number on.
Okay.
All the information's there. In fact, when you get to that page, without even having to log in, there's a map of the country, and you click on the state that you're interested in, boom, it tells you what you need to get licensed in that state.
Would you think someone would be any more desirable to a potential employer if they had multiple state licenses?
Depends on your company and the lead generation module. You mentioned Rocket Mortgage, all right? There's other companies that are more call center centric.
Yep, consumer direct versus what I call business to business.
Correct. I have a friend of mine he lives in Coral Gables. He works at a company in Coral Gables. He is licensed in 43 different states. 5 of them are the 0 states, all right?
Okay.
Like Florida's got 1 hour Florida specific CE you need. So he only has to do, ready? 308 hours of CE every year.
Ooh.
Oh no, I take that back. It's really the 7 hours covers it just about everywhere.
Okay.
So then you just add in the other states. It's probably a 50-ish hours. But
What? But he's spending
also,
2 weeks of his career each year, 2 weeks of his 52, just doing continuing education.
I guarantee he's doing online and off hours when he can't generate loans or work on his loans.
Yes. But you know, it's interesting. But if you work for a bank or you work for a bank-owned mortgage lender, for the most part, you're not doing this. Now, there are some states, by the way, as an independent mortgage mortgage banker who happens to work for a bank or a bank LO, there are certain states that still have increased requirements. Like we have loan officers. It's pretty easy for a loan officer here at Waterstone to lend in 48 of the 50 states. Like we don't do Hawaii because Hawaii requires you to have a physical location, and we don't do New York because, well, it's New York. I won't even go there from this on this episode. But there are certain states that when we look at the requirements, I'll throw Massachusetts out there. We look at not Massachusetts. It was New Hampshire. We looked at New Hampshire. Whatever was being required by the state of New Hampshire, by our loan officer and our branch manager, it was so cumbersome that we just told the loan officer, go ahead and refer that to a New Hampshire loan officer, get your $500 referral fee because we can do that because we work for the same company, and move on. And I know you mentioned to me off camera, there's states like West Virginia and Minnesota that kind of play by their own rules.
Well, they've require a separate test on their material.
Okay.
When everything changed back in 2009, all the states had to have a separate 50-question test on state-specific laws. Within the next few years, all the states were giving feedback to the NMLS says, look, this is similar almost everywhere. There's some nuances, but everything is pretty similar. Let's move toward a national model, and then when you expand the test, like when I did my original NMLS test, it's 100 questions. They expanded it to 125 in 2012. I took the supplemental test so I can basically qualify anywhere in the country. And Minnesota and West Virginia were the only 2 holdouts. Florida, by the way, was a holdout until the end of 2017 on the separate test.
Wow.
So anyhow, I look at it like this.
Shout out to Eric Prutzman. I'm pretty sure Eric Prutzman, who is the lobbyist in Tallahassee, he lobbies on behalf of the Mortgage Bankers Association of Florida. I'm sure Eric had a lot to do with that because that would have been an item that the Mortgage Bankers Association would have been advocating for, was to make our test similar to what the rest of the nation was doing.
Right, make it more streamlined.
Which for anyone who's entering into this industry, allow me to get on my soapbox for like 30 seconds, get involved in your trade organizations, whether it's the Mortgage Bankers Association, whether it's the National Association of Mortgage Professionals, NAMP, MBA, like it's your profession, right? The same gusto that I use to say drop the $1,200, go all in, go all inclusive. Also, take that same gusto and start attending your trade organization's monthly meetings, their annual events, and then help them advocate to Tallahassee, Washington, D.C., et cetera.
Right. All right, what do we have next?
All right, how about this? On the same lines that we were keeping everything on, hey, Bill, I'm moving. I love Orlando, but, man, I love North Carolina. Should I just wait and do North Carolina, or should I go ahead and test now, pass it, and then worry about North Carolina when I move?
Okay, I'm going to have some fun with your audience.
Okay.
You did an episode, I don't remember which one, called The Cost of Waiting.
Oh,
And
that's one of my favorite episodes ever. The fact it hasn't gone viral yet actually intrigues me. I hope it does, but go ahead, yes.
All right, so along those lines, the cost of waiting to refinance, or the cost of waiting really to purchase the home and get in, and as you talk about building generational wealth potentially, is huge. I don't know about your home here, but in Miami, we refied a year and a half ago. I checked on an AVM that's really accurate about a week ago. My house is up like 120 on the AVM from when I refied.
Yeah, so even if it's wrong, you're up 90 grand.
Correct.
Okay.
Whip me, beat me, make me
Yes.
write bad checks.
Yeah.
So the cost of waiting on getting the license, the longer you wait, the longer the current situation we're in is going to become shorter. Rates are now at historic lows. They're back in the high 2s and the low 3s. That is free money. You can't compete with that. When I started doing this 33 years ago, I was writing loans in California where I got started. I was refining people out of 16 and 18% loans. I was selling 14%
Wow.
Fannie Freddie money.
Wow.
And I made more money in 1988, my first year as a loan officer, than I made in 1987, my last year as a naval officer. All right? 14%.
Yeah.
1-4.
Yeah.
1-4.
Yeah, there we go.
Dyslexic, okay? People need a place to live. People will always look to refinance, whether it's to lower their rate and payment or because they want to build a pool, do an addition, any number of reasons, pay for an education. There are lots of reasons to do a refinance. Get the license as soon as you can. Get it now because you get it in Florida. You're moving to North Carolina. Gorgeous area, by the way. That's where my dad retired to. But once you have the license, you move to North Carolina. You can go to work for a company under what's called transitional authority
That
or
is
temporary
correct.
authority, and for 120 days, you can originate, write loans, get paid, and all you have to do in that 120-day period, if you're already licensed, is pass the North Carolina specific course and then apply in North Carolina. And if they ask you to do an updated background check, no big deal because your fingerprints are good for 3 years, and here's why. The FBI will not do a background check on fingerprints more than 3 years old.
Interesting. That is phenomenal advice, and it makes perfect sense. So to answer listener viewer's question, yeah, do it now. Don't wait. Do it now, and it'll make it that much easier when you do move to A, get hired, because you're going to have the 120 days reprieve before you have to take your state. Yeah, it's perfect. You have answered, or we have answered, everything else that we had written down. I actually commend you for being able to tie it all together into one show. So before we go ahead and call this an episode, any parting shots, any last minute tips, tricks, advice? I mean, this episode is all about preparing for, studying, and passing the NMLS course. What did we not cover? What do people need to be able to take away, tie down, and use it for their betterment?
We've covered everything, but just to sum up, take the class, get your NMLS number, study, whatever that means, prepare, pass the test, get into the industry. Now, once you get into the industry, do not try to think about every potential scenario you could come up with, Jimmy. Go out and find business, because the way you learn this business, the way I learned this business, is I brought in loans.
100%.
I can't tell you the number of students that come up to me on the break. Oh, I wish I knew what you knew. Well, in 30 years you'll know it, but I can't do the Vulcan mind meld where I can be Mr. Spock and transfer 33 plus years of experience into you. It doesn't work that way. That's number one. Number two, do not look at the money. How much money can I make? You can make as much as you want to make, but look at helping families. What you are doing is you are helping families pursue their dreams. All right, I haven't been in the mortgage business in close to 30 years because 3 years in, I figured out I was in the dream-making business.
Well, I love that.
And every day when I wake up and I ask myself, whose dreams can I help come true today? It's got nothing to do with Mickey and the fact we're in Orlando. If I go out and I'm thinking about who can I help accomplish their goals, needs, wants, desires, and dreams, instead of, oh, I got to find somebody that needs a mortgage. What a different spin. I'm doing the same thing, but it's a different thing mentally. And number three, do not look at the loan amounts. Look at units. You want to close units. I'd rather have 10 loans for $100,000 in the pipeline than one jumbo for $1 million. Because if the jumbo kicks out, I'm hosed. I'm not making the mortgage payment next month. If one of my 10 kicks out, I'm still funded 9, and I got 900,000 funding. If I'm making 1 point, let's just use 1 point because
Yep,
it's
100
all over
basis
the
points.
place. 100
Yep.
basis points. I just made 9 grand.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make 100 grand a year. All right. What's 12 times 9,000? That's 108,000. Remember, math is easy. I'll convince some of you by the end of this podcast. It comes, and it's, the whole thing we talked about.
Not only that, but that's 9 past clients. That's 9 times how many friends, family, coworkers, neighbors do they have? That's not.
Referrals.
Yes. I love that advice. Focus on the units. Now, ultimately, once you've made it to level 3, and you may be coaching with me, I will talk about, hey, let's look at your average loan size.
Mm-hmm.
But that's once you've already conquered the unit game. Once you're already doing 100 plus units a year, now we're going to talk about how can you do 120 units and also increase your average loan size.
Correct.
Right? But that's not for this, and I love your advice. What else?
Well,
one or two more great pieces of
two
advice from
great pieces
the
of
legendary
advice.
Bill Benson, mortgagecommander.com.
All right. Your web presence, your social media presence. All right. I have the website. If you go to it, if you sign up for the study materials on the website, it's just the questions because we're revamping it. All right. And then I'll email you and I'll give you the other options for the other materials. But you'll notice on the web, sadly, I don't have Host a Hero there yet. That's one of the upgrades we're doing. You'll see some stuff about your bosom buddies. Your social media, your web page, you put on that web page what is important to you as far as a nonprofit or a charitable organization that you either support with your time or your money. Let people see there is more to you than just somebody that hacks loans and is only interested in originating loans. Let them see the other side of you that they're not going to get a chance to see necessarily.
People do business with people.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, be a person.
gee. Zig Ziglar, God rest his soul, been gone for a while. People will do business with you for 3 reasons. Because they like you, because they like you, because they like you. Now, I have stolen Zig's quote and I've expounded on it. People will do business with you for 3 reasons, and then this will be the tie-up, and then I'll give you the carrot. People will do business with you because they like you, they trust you, and they respect you.
Agreed. 1,000%.
Okay, now you ready for the carrot?
I'm ready for the carrot, Bill.
All right. So the way I met Brian Holloway is when I was at the University of Maryland, I was leading a couple of Bible studies each week for 2 different high schools. Brian went to one of the schools, Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland. Well, one of the other fellows that he played football with in high school was a guy named Dan Edwards. Dan has no clue I'm doing this. I don't even know if he'll figure this out. And maybe I'll have to let him know, you got to listen to this podcast, but you got to listen all the way to the end, or you can fast forward if you want. Dan graduated from the University of Oregon, and then he got a master's in business administration. He got a master's at Ohio University in sports management. Went to work for the Dolphins as their advanced guy. Well, that was 1984. And wouldn't you know it, Dan comes out to San Diego, gets a hold of me. Hey, Bill, I'm in town. Let's get together. We get together. He says, oh, by the way, here's 2 tickets for you for the game. I had Bob Trumpy's tickets, the old announcer from NBC. Dan, got some tickets for me. Dan went from there. He went to work for the Steelers. He was there for 9 years. In 1994, what team was started in the northeastern part of Florida?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Dan went to work for them. Dan is now their senior vice president in charge of media and alumni relations. Now, I haven't spoken to him or texted him in a while, but if he hasn't retired yet, and even if he has, when your son is ready to get a tryout, I will do what I can to assist that process.
That is fantastic. I will let my son know that he's 16. He's entering his junior year at the local high school. He needs to get his snap times down. He knows that. He needs to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. I mean, bigger, he's 6'3", 185 pounds, but
6'3" is good.
yes.
He needs to put at least another 60 pounds on that. Here's another thing. All right, I'm going to give you a little secret that I was a center.
Okay.
All right. The secret I'm going to give you is with your son's height, and he can put on, and he doesn't have to put all the weight on in the next 2 years because he can do it at college where they have.
Yeah, we're
more-
talking long snapping,
more
Bill.
advanced-
We're not talking about having to be the next Sunday,
What-
Jeff Sunday,
Do you know
or Saturday. Was it Saturday? Was it Jeff Saturday? Jeff Sunday. The
Well, I
Colts
think
Center
there
under
was-
Peyton Manning.
There were two different. One guy was Sunday, another guy was Saturday. Was Peyton's. So
Okay.
here's a trivia question for you.
Okay.
What position do a lot of long snappers in the NFL play?
They long snap.
Well, but they have a secondary position.
Well, they have to go down the field and make a tackle.
Tight end.
Well, correct. Yeah. Yep. And
The
that's
vast
actually
majority
yes.
of long snappers
Or-
are tight ends. And
correct.
Since your son is 6'3", he's got the height.
Yep.
He gets up to 215-ish, 205, 215-ish in the next couple of years. Goes to college, builds himself up to 245. He will be positioned to play that position.
100%. No, Bill, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. Like, he is Bill Benson. His website is mortgagecommander.com. His website is webmortgage@gmail.com. I'm Dustin Owen. He's Bill Benson. You've tuned into the Loan Officer Podcast. Please like us, share us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn at the Loan Officer Podcast. You can watch us on YouTube, or you can tune in on Apple, on Spotify, and anywhere else that you find podcasts.
One last thing.
One last thing.
That was easy.
We'll end it there. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.